And that, class, concludes our lecture on the delicate ecosystem of Floridium VII, where even the gentlest breeze can cause catastrophic damage to the crystalline lifeforms. Professor Zix-Nax's tentacles waved dramatically as he finished his presentation, his iridescent scales shimmering with what passed for excitement in his species. The classroom of intergalactic students stared back with varying degrees of awe and terror, all except one, that is. In the back corner, a human girl named Alex sat with her feet propped up on the desk, idly twirling a pencil between her fingers. "Excuse me," Professor Alex called out, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "but I couldn't help but wonder, how do these fragile crystal creatures handle, oh, I don't know, a good sneeze?" The class gasped collectively. Professor Zix-Nax's scales shifted to a deep purple, the Zorblaxian equivalent of a blush. "Well, MS. Alexandria, as I explained, any sudden disturbance could be catastrophic. A sneeze, as you put it, would likely cause a chain reaction, leading to the destruction of an entire crystal forest." Alex couldn't help but snort. "Sounds like a real party planet. Remind me to pack my bubble wrap suit if we ever take a field trip there." The rest of the class watched in a mixture of horror and fascination. To most species in the Galactic Federation's elite academy for gifted younglings, humor, especially the sarcastic kind, was a rare and often concerning display of emotion. To see it so freely and loudly expressed was unsettling. Vixara, a Luminoth student sitting next to Alex, leaned over and whispered, "Alex, perhaps it would be wise to show more respect. Professor Zix-Nax is one of the most renowned xenobiologists in the galaxy." Alex rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Vix. You've got to admit, a planet where you can commit genocide by sneezing is pretty ridiculous. I mean, how did these crystal things even evolve? Did they just sit really, really still for a few million years?" Before Vix-Era could respond, the bell rang, or rather, a harmonic resonance signaling the end of class echoed through the room. As the students began to file out, Professor Zix-Nax called out, "MS. Alexandria, a word please." Alex sighed, shouldering her bag. "Duty calls. Catch you later, Vix." As she approached the professor's desk, Alex couldn't help but marvel at the absurdity of her situation. Here she was, millions of light years from Earth, the sole human in a school full of aliens who treated her like she was made of nitroglycerine. All because her homeworld was classified as a Class 13 Deathworld, the highest and most terrifying classification in the Galactic Federation's planetary index. "MS. Alexandria," Professor Zix-Nax began, his tentacles twisting nervously, "I understand that you come from a unique background, but I must insist that you show more respect for the delicate nature of other worlds." Alex leaned against the desk, raising an eyebrow. "With all due respect, Prof, where I come from, delicate isn't really in our vocabulary. We kind of had to toughen up, what with the constant natural disasters, predators, and our own spectacular talent for making things explode." The professor's scales shifted to a pale blue concern. Alex had learned. "Yes, well, that's precisely why you're here, isn't it? To learn about the vast diversity of life in our galaxy, much of which is far more fragile than what you're accustomed to." Alex sighed, running a hand through her short, spiky hair. "I get it, I do. It's just hard sometimes, you know. Everything here feels like it's made of tissue paper. I'm constantly afraid I'm going to break someone just by looking at them wrong." Professor Zix-Nax's tentacles relaxed slightly. "I understand, MS Andrea. It must be quite an adjustment. But please, try to remember that what seems fragile to you is the result of millions of years of evolution perfectly suited to their environments, just as you are suited to yours." Alex nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Fair enough. I'll try to dial back the sarcasm. A little, anyway. Can't promise miracles." The professor's scales shimmered with what Alex had come to recognize as amusement. "I suppose that's the best I can hope for. Now, run along. I believe you have quantum physics with Professor Quark-Nor next, and you know how he gets when students are late." As Alex left the classroom, she couldn't help but chuckle. Professor Quark-Nor was a quartzian, a silicon-based lifeform that looked like a sentient geode. His concept of late was measured in picoseconds. She sprinted down the holographic hallways of the academy, marveling for the 1000th time at the sheer alienness of it all. The walls shimmered and shifted, displaying real-time images of various parts of the galaxy. Students of all shapes, sizes, and states of matter flowed around her, some flying, some slithering, some teleporting in short bursts. As she rounded a corner, she quite literally ran into her best friend, Zorg. The Amorphian's gelatinous body absorbed the impact, rippling like a sentient water balloon. "Whoa there," Speed Demon Zorg gurgled, his voice bubbling with laughter. "What's the rush?" Quarknor threatening to make you experience all of time simultaneously again. Alex grinned, watching as Zorg reformed into his preferred humanoid shape. "Nah, just had a little chat with Zix-Nax about my attitude problem. Apparently, sarcasm is still a foreign concept around here." Zorg's body shimmered with amusement, little sparks of bioluminescence dancing through his translucent form. "Well, you are something of an acquired taste, Alex. Most species here are still trying to wrap their various sensory organs around the concept of a Class 13 Deathworlder." "Tell me about it," Alex sighed as they resumed walking. "Or in Zorg's case, flowing. You'd think I was made of antimatter or something. Did you see how Vix Ara reacted when I sneezed in xenobiology? I thought she was going to molt on the spot." Zorg let out a burbling laugh. "Can you blame her? The last time a Class 10 Deathworlder sneezed in the cafeteria, it took weeks to regrow the East Wing." Alex rolled her eyes. "Oh please, that's such an exaggeration. It was barely a few days, and besides, who puts load-bearing plants in a school anyway?" As they entered Professor Quarknor's classroom, Alex couldn't help but feel a twinge of homesickness. Sure, Earth was a death trap compared to most inhabited planets, but at least there she didn't have to worry about accidentally causing an interstellar incident every time she hiccuped. The classroom was a marvel of alien architecture. Instead of desks, students settled into gravity fields calibrated to their specific physiological needs. The walls were covered in ever-shifting equations, multicolored lines of exotic math dancing across surfaces that seemed to extend into other dimensions. Professor Quarknor stood, or rather, existed at the front of the class, his crystalline body refracting light in mesmerizing patterns. "Ah, MS. Alexandria, Mr. Zorg, so kind of you to join us within the acceptable temporal parameters. Please, assume your learning positions." Alex floated up to her gravity field, feeling the familiar tingle as it adjusted to her human physiology. Zorg simply oozed into a nearby containment field, his amorphous body taking on a vaguely humanoid shape out of habit. "Today." Professor Quarknor's voice resonated through the room, bypassing air and transmitting directly into the students' minds. "We will be discussing the finer points of quantum entanglement across galactic distances. MS. Alexandria. Perhaps you'd like to start us off by explaining the basic principles." Alex suppressed a groan. Of course she'd get called on first. "Well, Prof Q, it's kind of like trying to coordinate your outfit with your best friend when they're on the other side of the planet. No matter how far apart you are, if you're entangled, you'll always match. Except instead of clothes, it's quantum states, and instead of planets, it's light years." The class stared at her in confusion. Professor Quarknor's crystalline body vibrated in what Alex had learned was his species equivalent of a sigh. "While your analogy is colorful, MS. Alexandria, perhaps we could approach this from a more scientific angle." "Sure thing," Prof. Alex grinned. "How about this quantum entanglement is like having a pair of dice that always roll the same number, no matter how far apart they are. Spooky action at a distance, as one of our old Earth physicists used to say." Better, Professor Quarknor conceded, his facets glinting. "Though I must remind you, MS. Alexandria, that comparing quantum mechanics to games of chance is a gross oversimplification. Hey, on Earth, quantum physics and gambling often went hand in hand. You should have seen our stock markets," Alex quipped. The rest of the class proceeded in a similar fashion, with Alex providing increasingly outlandish analogies for complex quantum concepts, much to the bewilderment of her classmates and the exasperation of Professor Quarknor. As they left the classroom, Zorg reformed beside Alex, his body rippling with suppressed laughter. "You know, for someone from a Class 13 Deathworld, you sure do like living dangerously. I thought Quarknor was going to crystallize on the spot when you compared quantum tunneling to drunk humans trying to find their way home after a party." Alex shrugged, a mischievous glint in her eye. "What can I say? If I'm going to be the scary Deathworlder, I might as well have some fun with it. Besides, did you see Vlix-Nor's face when I mentioned Earth's particle accelerators? I thought his eye stalks were going to pop out." Zorg's body shimmered with curiosity. "You know, you never really talk about Earth much. What's it like living on a Class 13 Deathworld?" Alex's smile faltered for a moment. It's intense, beautiful, terrifying, and absolutely insane. Imagine a place where the ground can split open and swallow entire cities, where the air itself can turn into swirling vortexes of destruction, and where life has evolved to thrive in the most hostile conditions imaginable. Zorg's form rippled with a mix of fascination and horror. That sounds horrifying. How do you survive? Alex's grin returned, fiercer this time. We adapt, we innovate. We look at a world that's constantly trying to kill us and say, nice try, but not today. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our physical abilities, it's our stubborn refusal to lay down and die. As they walked towards the cafeteria, Alex couldn't help but notice the wide berth other students gave them. It was a common occurrence. Most species found humans unpredictable and slightly terrifying. The fact that Earth was classified as a Class 13 Deathworld didn't help matters. So Zorg bubbled as they joined the lunch line. Are you ready for physical education with Coach Krang? I heard we're doing zero-G combat simulations today. Alex's eyes lit up with excitement. Now that's what I'm talking about. Finally, a class where being a Deathworlder might actually come in handy. As they grabbed their trays of what looked like pulsating rainbow jello, the cafeteria's attempt at creating a universally edible meal, Alex couldn't help but feel a surge of anticipation. Physical education was one of the few classes where she didn't have to constantly worry about accidentally breaking something or someone. They made their way to a table where Vix Ara was already seated, her luminous form glowing softly in the artificial light of the cafeteria. Alex, Zorg, she greeted them, her voice a melodious trill. I trust your quantum physics class was enlightening, Alex snorted as she sat down. Oh, it was illuminating, all right. Did you know that according to galactic standards, Earth's approach to quantum mechanics is considered recklessly experimental? Apparently, our habit of smashing particles together at near light speeds is seen as the subatomic equivalent of poking a sleeping bear with a stick. Vix Ara's glow flickered with concern. That does sound rather dangerous. But then again, I suppose danger is relative when you come from a Class 13 Deathworld. You got that right, Alex grinned, taking a bite of her rainbow jello. She immediately regretted it as the food started to wriggle in her mouth. Suppressing a gag, she quickly swallowed. Though I've got to say, this cafeteria food might be more deadly than anything we've got back on Earth. Pretty sure my lunch just tried to escape. Zorg, who had simply absorbed his meal through osmosis, rippled with amusement. You know, Alex, for someone from a planet of apex predators, you're remarkably picky about your food. Hey, on Earth, if your food moves, it's either very fresh or very, very bad, Alex retorted. We may be tough, but we draw the line at sentient meals. Their banter was interrupted by a commotion at the cafeteria entrance. A group of Vexlorian students had just walked in, their crystalline bodies glittering under the lights. At their center was Zax Law, the self-proclaimed apex lifeform of the academy. "That's great," Alex muttered. "Look who decided to grace us with his sparkling presence." Vix Ara's glow dimmed slightly. "Alex, please. Zax Law is from a highly respected family. His ancestors were among the founding members of the Galactic Federation." "Yeah, and he never lets anyone forget it," Alex rolled her eyes. "I swear, if his head got any bigger, he'd collapse into a black hole of pure ego." As if on cue, Zax Law sauntered over to their table, his crystalline features arranged in what he probably thought was a charming smile. Well, if it isn't the Academy's pet Deathworlder and her interesting companions." Alex felt her temper flare, but she plastered on a saccharine smile. "Zax Law, always a pleasure. How's life in the upper echelons of galactic society? Still as vapid and meaningless as ever?" Zax Law's crystal facets flushed a deep blue, the Vexlorian equivalent of an angry blush. "Watch your tongue, Earthling. You may be tolerated here due to some misguided notion of diversity, but don't forget your place. A brutish species from a savage world has no business among the galactic elite." Alex stood up slowly, her eyes never leaving Zax Law's face. The cafeteria fell silent, every alien student watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. Even Zax Law's cronies took a step back. "My place," Alex said softly, her voice carrying in the silence. "Let me tell you about my place, Zax Law. I come from a world where the very air can burn you alive, where the ground beneath your feet can swallow entire cities in an instant, where life itself is a constant battle for survival. Every single human is the product of billions of years of evolution, owned by a planet that never stops trying to kill us. She took a step closer, and Zach's law involuntarily retreated. We've faced extinction-level events that would shatter your pretty crystal body into dust, and we've come back stronger every time. We've split the atom, touched the face of our own moon, and sent our voice out into the cosmos. All while fighting against a world that makes your precious Vexloria look like a holiday resort. The cafeteria was so quiet you could hear a photon drop. Every alien student was watching with a mixture of awe and terror as Alex continued, her voice low and intense. So yeah, Zach's law. I know my place. It's right here, among the stars, proving that humanity deserves to stand shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the galaxy. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we've looked into the abyss of a Class 13 Deathworld and said, "Is that all you've got?" Zach's law's crystalline body was vibrating with a mixture of fear and rage. You can't speak to me like that. Do you know who my father is?" Alex couldn't help but laugh. "Let me guess. He's made of money and nepotism. Newsflash, sparkles out here in the big bad universe. Daddy's name doesn't mean squat. It's what you do that counts." She turned to address the stunned cafeteria at large. "That goes for all of you. Yeah, I'm from Earth. Yeah, it's a Class 13 death world. But that doesn't make me a monster. And it sure as hell doesn't make me less than any of you. It just means I've got some skills you might not. Like how to survive when everything around you is trying to kill you. Including, apparently, the cafeteria food." This last quip broke the tension. A ripple of nervous laughter spread through the room. Even some of Zach's law's cronies were trying to hide their amusement. Zach's law, realizing he was losing his audience, puffed up his crystalline chest. "This isn't over, Earthling. You'll regret this." As he stormed off, his entourage trailing behind him, Alex called out, looking forward to it, "Sparkles. Maybe next time bring an argument that isn't made of glass." As the normal chatter of the cafeteria slowly resumed, Alex sat back down, suddenly aware of how fast her heart was beating. Adrenaline, that uniquely human hormone, was coursing through her veins. Zorg oozed closer, his gelatinous body rippling with concern. "Alex, are you okay?" That was intense. Alex took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing pulse. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just got a bit carried away there. Sometimes I forget how scary we can seem to the rest of the galaxy." Vic's era's luminous form flickered anxiously. "It was quite alarming, I must admit, but also impressive. I've never seen anyone stand up to Zach's law like that." "Yeah, well, someone had to deflate that crystal balloon," Alex muttered. "I'm just tired of being treated like some kind of barbaric curiosity. We might be from a death world, but that doesn't make us mindless brutes." Just then, a shadow fell over their table. Alex looked up to see Coach Krang looming over them, his massive, multi-limbed body blocking out the light. The Octavian's 8 eyes were fixed on Alex with an unreadable expression. Hey Coach," Alex said, trying to sound casual. "What's up?" Coach Krang's gravelly voice rumbled through the air. "MS, Alexandria, my office. Now." As Alex got up to follow the coach, she couldn't help but feel a twinge of worry. Had she gone too far? Was she about to get expelled for threatening the stuck-up son of some galactic bigwig? The walk to Coach Krang's office was silent and tense. Alex couldn't help but marvel at the coach's fluid movement. Despite having 8 limbs and a body mass that would crush most species, he moved with a grace that defied physics. Once inside the office, Coach Krang settled his bulk behind a desk that looked comically small in comparison. Alex stood awkwardly, unsure whether to sit or remain standing. "Sit," Coach Krang rumbled, gesturing to a chair with one of his many arms. Alex sat, trying not to fidget under the coach's multi-eyed gaze. "Look, Coach, if this is about what happened in the cafeteria..." "It is," Coach Krang interrupted. "But not in the way you think." He leaned forward, his massive form seeming to fill the entire room. "Tell me, Alexandria, do you know why I pushed for your admission to this academy?"
Alex blinked, taken aback. I assumed it was because of some diversity quota or something. You know, let's see how the Deathworlder does in civilized society kind of thing.
Coach Krang's eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Alex had learned was the Octavian equivalent of a chuckle. "Not quite. I pushed for your admission because I've seen what humans can do. I've witnessed firsthand the incredible potential of your species. He gestured to a holographic display on the wall, which sprang to life with images of Earth, raging storms, erupting volcanoes, churning seas, and in every image, humans not just surviving, but thriving. Your planet, Coach Krang continued, is a crucible of evolution. It has forged your species into something unique in the galaxy. You're adaptable, resilient, and possess a drive that most species can't even comprehend. Alex felt a surge of pride, tempered with confusion. But then, why does everyone here treat us like we're some kind of dangerous animals? Fear, Coach Krang said simply. Fear and ignorance. Most species here have evolved in stable, predictable environments. The idea of a world like Earth, let alone a species that could evolve there, is terrifying to them. He leaned back, his eyes focusing on Alex with an intensity that made her sit up straighter. But that fear is based on a lack of understanding. Your little display in the cafeteria, that wasn't just about putting Zach's law in his place. Whether you realized it or not, you were educating your fellow students about what it means to be human. Alex thought back to the awed faces in the cafeteria, the mixture of fear and fascination she'd seen. I guess I never thought of it that way. Coach Krang nodded, his multiple limbs moving in a complex gesture that Alex interpreted as approval. That's why you're here, Alexandria. Not just to learn about the galaxy, but to teach it about humanity. To show everyone that being from a death world doesn't make you monsters, it makes you survivors. He stood up, or rather, unfolded himself to his full, impressive height, and Alex scrambled to her feet. Now, Coach Krang said, a hint of amusement in his rumbling voice, I believe we have a zero-G combat class to get to. Ready to show these softies what a Deathworlder can do. Alex couldn't help but grin. Born ready, Coach. Born ready. As they left the office and headed towards the gymnasium, Alex felt a new sense of purpose filling her. She wasn't just a student here, she was an ambassador for her entire species, and she was going to make damn sure the galaxy understood what humans were really. As they left the office and headed towards the gymnasium, Alex felt a new sense of purpose filling her. She wasn't just a student here, she was an ambassador for her entire species, and she was going to make damn sure the galaxy understood what humans were really capable of. The gymnasium, like everything else in the Galactic Academy, was a marvel of alien engineering. As Alex stepped through the door, she felt the familiar tingle of a gravity field adjusting to her physiology. The vast space before her seemed to stretch into infinity, its boundaries blurring into a star-filled void. Alex breathed, momentarily awestruck, despite having seen it before. No matter how many times she entered this room, the sheer scale of it never failed to impress her. Coach Krang's rumbling voice snapped her back to attention. All right, larvae, line up and prepare for zero-G combat training. The other students were already there, a motley assortment of alien life forms, ranging from the vaguely humanoid to the utterly bizarre. Alex spotted Zorg oozing into position, his amorphous body rippling with excitement. Vix Era's luminous form pulsed nervously nearby. And there, at the far end of the line, stood Zach's Law, his crystalline body glittering with what Alex assumed was smug superiority. Today, Coach Krang announced, his multiple limbs gesticulating in complex patterns, will be focusing on adaptation and quick thinking in a zero-gravity environment. Your goal is simple: incapacitate your opponent without causing permanent damage. The last one floating wins. A ripple of nervous excitement passed through the students. Zero-G combat was always intense, but there was an extra charge in the air today. Alex could feel the eyes of her classmates on her, a mixture of fear, curiosity, and anticipation. Alexandria, Coach Krang called out, "You're up first. Let's see what a Deathworlder can do." Alex stepped forward, feeling the gravity field around her weaken until she was floating gently above the floor. Across from her, Zach's Law moved into position, a smirk visible on his crystalline features. Ready to get schooled, Earthling Zach's Law taunted, his voice echoing in the vast space. Alex grinned, cracking her knuckles. "Bring it on, Sparkles. Let's see if you're as fragile as you look," Coach Krang's voice boomed out. Begin. Instantly, the world around Alex shifted. The star-filled void of the gymnasium erupted into a swirling nebula of colors, creating a disorienting backdrop for the battle. Alex felt her stomach lurch as her inner ear struggled to make sense of the lack of clear up or down. But this wasn't her first rodeo. Back on Earth, zero-G training was a standard part of the curriculum, preparation for humanity's ongoing push into space. Alex had spent countless hours in simulations like this, learning to move, fight, and think in 3 dimensions. Zach's Law, clearly expecting an easy victory, launched himself at Alex with all the grace of a crystal chandelier in a hurricane. His momentum was good, but his technique was sloppy. Alex waited until the last second, then used Zach's Law's own speed against him. With a quick twist of her body, she grabbed one of his outstretched arms and pivoted, sending the Vexlorian spinning wildly into the nebulous void. Rule 1 of zero-G combat, Sparkles Alex called out, her voice filled with mock sweetness. Control your momentum or someone else will. Zach's Law flailed, his crystalline limbs scattering refracted light across the gymnasium as he tried to reorient himself. The other students watched in fascination as Alex moved with fluid grace through the zero-G environment, every motion precise and purposeful. What's the matter? Zach's Law Alex taunted as she easily dodged another clumsy charge, finding it hard to fight when Daddy's influence doesn't count for squat. Zach's Law's face contorted with rage, his crystalline features catching the light of the simulated nebula. You'll pay for this, you primitive ape. He managed to right himself and launched a barrage of quick jabs at Alex. She had to admit, he was faster than she expected. One strike grazed her arm, leaving a small cut. First blood to you. Sparkles Alex grinned, the pain only sharpening her focus. Now it's my turn. With a kick off a conveniently placed asteroid, Alex made a mental note to thank the simulation designers later. She rocketed towards Zach's Law. At the last second, she tucked into a roll, using her smaller mass and greater flexibility to her advantage. Before Zach's Law could react, Alex had wrapped herself around him, using her limbs to lock his arms in place. The Vexlorian struggled, but in the zero-G environment, his greater mass worked against him. Rule 2 of zero-G combat, Alex whispered near, where she assumed Zach's Law's ears would be if he had any. Leverage beats strength every time. With a precise application of force, Alex sent them both into a controlled spin. She could feel Zach's Law's crystalline body vibrating with a mixture of rage and motion sickness. Give up yet? Sparkles Alex asked, increasing the speed of their spin. Never, you barbarian. Zach's Law managed to stutter out, though his voice lacked its usual arrogance. Have it your way, Alex shrugged. Then, with a move that would have made her zero-G combat instructor back on Earth proud, she abruptly changed the axis of their spin. The sudden shift was too much for Zach's Law. His crystalline body shuddered, and then went limp as the Vexlorian lost consciousness. Match over Coach Krang's voice boomed. Alexandria wins. As the simulated nebula faded away and normal gravity reasserted itself, Alex gently lowered the unconscious Zach's Law to the ground. She could hear the amazed murmurs of her classmates. Did you see that? How did she move like that? I've never seen anyone take down a Vexlorian so fast. Coach Krang moved to the center of the gymnasium, his multiple eyes scanning the students. And that, larvae, is why you never underestimate an opponent, regardless of their origin. Alexandria didn't win because she's stronger or faster. She won because she understood the environment and used it to her advantage. He turned to Alex, and she could have sworn she saw a glimmer of pride in his alien eyes. Well done, Alexandria. That was an impressive display of zero-G combat techniques. Alex felt a surge of pride, mixed with a tinge of embarrassment at being the center of attention. Thanks, Coach. Just applying what I learned back home. As the other students began their own zero-G duels, Alex made her way over to where Zorg and Vixara were waiting. Zorg's gelatinous body was rippling with excitement, while Vixara's glow had brightened considerably. That was amazing. Alex Zorg burbled. You were like a zero-G ninja out there. Vixara nodded, her luminous form pulsing with what Alex had learned was admiration. I must admit, I've never seen anything quite like it. Is this truly how all humans fight in zero gravity? Alex chuckled, running a hand through her sweat-dampened hair. Nah, I'm just a bit above average. You should see our actual zero-G specialists. They make me look like I'm moving in slow motion. She glanced over to where a group of medical drones were attending to the still unconscious Zach's Law. Think I went too hard on Sparkles over there. Zorg made a sound that Alex had come to recognize as the Amorphian equivalent of a snort. Are you kidding? That pompous crystal has had that coming for a long time. Maybe now he'll think twice before underestimating a primitive species. Vixara's glow dimmed slightly in concern. I hope this doesn't cause diplomatic issues. Zach's Law's family is quite influential in the Galactic Council. Alex shrugged, a mischievous glint in her eye. Well, if they have a problem with it, they can take it up with Earth's diplomatic corps. I hear they're always up for a good debate, especially if it involves defending humanity's honor. Vic's era's luminous form flickered with what Alex had come to recognize as a mixture of amusement and exasperation. You humans and your constant need to prove yourselves. It's both admirable and slightly terrifying. Hey, when you come from a planet that's actively trying to kill you 24/7, you learn to stand your ground, Alex grinned. Speaking of which, you two better get out there before Coach Krang decides to use you for target practice. As Zorg and Vixara moved to take their turns in the zero-G combat simulation, Alex found herself surrounded by a group of curious classmates. Their earlier fear seemed to have been replaced by fascination. A Triloxian student, its insectoid features glittering with excitement, chittered at her. Alexandria, is it true that on Earth you have to fight gravity-defying predators on a daily basis? Alex couldn't help but laugh. Well, not exactly. Though I did have to wrestle my neighbor's cat out of a tree once. Does that count? The Triloxian's antennae twitched in confusion. Cat? Tree? Are these some kind of Earth super predators? Oh boy, Alex sighed, realizing she had some explaining to do. Okay, gather round, kids. It's time for Earth Biology 101, the good, the bad, and the fluffy. For the next few minutes, as the zero-G duels continued around them, Alex found herself giving an impromptu lecture on Earth's flora and fauna. Her classmates listened with rapt attention, their alien features expressing various degrees of shock, awe, and disbelief as she described everything from housecats to giant sequoias. Wait, a gaseous entity student interjected, its voice a melodious whistle. You're saying these trees can live for thousands of years, grow hundreds of feet tall, and you just climb them for fun? Alex nodded, grinning at the memory of childhood adventures. Yep, it's actually a pretty common pastime for human kids. Well, at least it was before we all got sucked into virtual reality games. A crystalline hive-mind student, its faceted body shimmering with curiosity, chimed in. But what about the dangers? Surely falling from such heights would be fatal. Oh, it can be, Alex admitted. But that's part of the thrill, you know. Plus, it teaches you a lot about risk assessment, spatial awareness, and how to land without breaking too many bones. The alien students exchanged looks of mingled horror and admiration. Alex could practically see the gears turning in their heads as they tried to reconcile the idea of a species that treated potentially fatal activities as fun.
Just then, Coach Krang's booming voice interrupted their impromptu Earth studies session. Alexandria, stop filling these larvae's heads with Deathworld nonsense and get back to the lesson at hand.
Alex jumped, having almost forgotten they were in the middle of a class. Sorry, Coach. Just giving them a little taste of Earth culture. As she rejoined the main group, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Sure, she might be the scary Deathworlder to most of these aliens, but at least now they were starting to see that there was more to humans than just their ability to survive harsh conditions. The rest of the class passed in a blur of zero-G maneuvers, with Alex occasionally stepping in to demonstrate techniques or offer advice. By the end, even some of the more physically adept species were looking at her with newfound respect. As they filed out of the gymnasium, Alex found herself walking beside Coach Krang. The massive Octavian moved with surprising grace for his size, his multiple limbs barely seeming to touch the ground. You did well today. Alexandria, Coach Krang rumbled, his voice pitched low enough that only she could hear. Not just in the combat simulation, but in how you handled yourself afterward. Alex felt a surge of pride at the compliment. Thanks, Coach. I'm just trying to represent Earth the best I can. Coach Krang's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture Alex had learned was the equivalent of a thoughtful nod. Indeed, and that's precisely why I wanted you here. You're not just learning about the galaxy, you're teaching it about humanity. He paused, his massive form somehow managing to look almost paternal. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Your species' abilities may seem extraordinary to others, but it's how you use those abilities that will truly define humanity's place in the galactic community. Alex nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of his words. I'll do my best, Coach, though I can't promise I won't throw the occasional Deathworlder curveball their way. Gotta keep things interesting, right? Coach Krang's rumbling chuckle echoed through the hallway. I wouldn't expect anything less from a human. Now, off with you. I believe you have xenolinguistics next, and I hear Professor Zix is particularly excited about delving into the nuances of Earth idioms today. As Alex hurried off to her next class, she couldn't help but grin. Xenolinguistics was always a hoot, especially when trying to explain human figures of speech to a bunch of confused aliens. She had a feeling its raining cats and dogs was going to cause quite the stir, especially after her impromptu Earth biology lesson. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of classes, each one presenting its own unique challenges for a human in a school full of aliens. In xenobiology, Alex had to explain again that no, humans couldn't actually regrow limbs, and yes, that was considered a disadvantage on Earth too. Advanced astrophysics involved a heated debate about the practicality of human space exploration methods, with Alex staunchly defending NASA's achievements despite the snickers from species that had mastered faster-than-light travel eons ago. By the time the final bell rang, or rather, the final harmonic resonance signaling the end of the academic day echoed through the school, Alex was mentally exhausted but oddly invigorated. As she made her way back to her dormitory, she found herself cornered by Zorg and Vixera. Alex Zorg burbled excitedly, his gelatinous form rippling with enthusiasm. "You'll never guess what we just heard." Alex raised an eyebrow, amused by her friend's excitement. "Let me guess, the cafeteria's finally serving something that doesn't try to eat us back." Vixera's luminous form pulsed with what Alex had come to recognize as the luminth equivalent of an eye roll. "Be serious, Alex. This is important. We overheard some of the faculty talking. Apparently, your little display in the Zero-G combat class has caught the attention of some pretty high-up individuals in the Galactic Federation." Alex felt a twinge of unease. "High-up individuals? Please tell me we're not talking about Zaxlaw's family coming to get revenge or something." Zorg's body shimmered with amusement. No, nothing like that. We're talking really high up. Like Galactic Council high up." What Alex exclaimed, her eyes widening. Why would the Galactic Council care about a Zero-G combat class in a school? Vixera's glow intensified, a sign of excitement. "It's not just about the class, Alex. It's about you, about humans. Apparently, your performance today, combined with your general, let's call it unique approach to galactic education, has sparked quite the debate in certain circles." Alex felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. Debate about what, exactly? Zorg's gelatinous form rippled with what Alex had learned was his species' equivalent of a shrug. "From what we could gather, it's about the potential role of humans in the Galactic Federation. Some council members are pushing for more human integration into various galactic institutions, while others," Vixera added, her glow dimming slightly, "are concerned about the potential risks of allowing a Class 13 Deathworld species too much influence." Alex let out a low whistle. "Well, damn, and here I thought I was just trying to pass my classes and not accidentally break anyone." "This could be a huge opportunity," Alex Zorg bubbled enthusiastically. "Think about it, you could be the face of humanity for the entire galactic community." Alex snorted. "Great, no pressure or anything. Just the fate of human-alien relations resting on my shoulders. Piece of cake." Vixera's form pulsed with sympathy. "I know it sounds overwhelming, but think of the good you could do. You've already changed so many minds here at the Academy. Imagine what you could do on a galactic scale." As they continued walking towards the dormitories, Alex's mind raced. She had come to the Galactic Academy to learn, to experience life beyond Earth. She never imagined she'd end up as some kind of unofficial ambassador for her entire species. "So," Alex said slowly, "what happens now? Do I get summoned before the Galactic Council or something? Please tell me I don't have to wear one of those ridiculous formal robes. I look terrible in tentacle sleeves." Zorg made a sound that Alex had come to recognize as laughter. "Nothing so dramatic, at least not yet. From what we heard, there's going to be a special observation period. Council representatives will be monitoring your progress and interactions more closely." The great Alex groaned. "As if I didn't have enough pressure with finals coming up. Now I have to worry about intergalactic politics too." They reached Alex's dorm room, a specially reinforced unit designed to withstand the occasional accidental display of human strength. As the door slid open with a soft hiss, Alex turned to her friends. "Look, I appreciate you guys telling me this, but let's not make a big deal out of it, okay? I'm still just Alex, your token Deathworlder friend who occasionally says weird things and can bench press a Jovian." Vic's aura's glow pulsed with affection. Of course, Alex, you'll always be our friend first. Just, maybe try not to start any intergalactic incidents for a while. Alex grinned. No promises. You know how we humans love our chaos. As her friends departed, Alex flopped onto her reinforced bed, staring up at the holographic ceiling that currently displayed a view of Earth's night sky. The familiar constellations twinkled down at her, a comforting reminder of home. Well, she muttered to herself, guess I better brush up on my diplomacy skills. Wonder if the library has intergalactic politics for dummies. Just then, her comm unit beeped. It was a message from Dean Xylos, the school's headmaster. Alex's heart rate quickened as she read, MS. Alexandria, please report to my office first thing tomorrow morning. We have much to discuss regarding your future at the academy and beyond. Rest assured, this is not a disciplinary matter. Rather, it seems you've caught the attention of some very important individuals. Sleep well, and be prepared for a rather interesting conversation. Alex reread the message 3 times, her mind whirling with possibilities. Part of her was excited this could be a chance to really make a difference, to change how the galaxy saw humans. Another part was terrified. What if she messed up? What if she accidentally started an intergalactic war because she used the wrong fork at a diplomatic dinner or something? She thought back to her conversation with Coach Krang earlier that day. With great power comes great responsibility, he had said. At the time, she thought he was just talking about her physical abilities. Now, she realized it might have been about something much bigger. As she lay there, the artificial night cycle of the academy dimming the lights in her room, Alex couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. Here she was, millions of light years from Earth, potentially on the cusp of changing humanity's role in the galaxy, all because she'd shown off some zero-G moves and cracked a few jokes. Only a human, she murmured, echoing a phrase she'd heard countless times since arriving at the academy. But for the first time, it didn't sound like an insult or a mark of fear. It sounded like potential, like possibility. As sleep began to claim her, Alex's last coherent thought was a mixture of determination and amusement. Watch out, galaxy. Humanity's coming, and we're bringing our chaos with us. The next morning, Alex woke to the soft chimes of her alien alarm clock, a gift from Vic's era that used harmonics to gently ease the sleeper awake. For a moment, she lay there, wondering why she felt so anxious. Then the events of yesterday and the dean's message came flooding back. Right, she muttered, dragging herself out of bed. Time to go be a galactic ambassador or whatever. No biggie. She went through her morning routine on autopilot, her mind racing with possible scenarios for the upcoming meeting. Should she try to be extra formal, or would that come off as insincere? Should she crack jokes to lighten the mood, or would that make her seem unprofessional? As she struggled with her unruly hair, gravity might be adjustable in the academy, but bad hair days were universal. Alex caught sight of herself in the mirror. She looked, well, human, messy hair, sleep-creased face and all. You know what she told her reflection. Screw it. They want to see what humans are like. They're gonna get the real deal. Bedhead and all, with a newfound sense of determination, Alex finished getting ready and headed out. As she made her way through the academy's shifting corridors, she noticed other students giving her a wide berth, whispering excitedly among themselves. Word had clearly gotten out about her impending meeting with the dean. Great, Alex muttered. Nothing like a little extra pressure to start the day. Finally, she arrived at the dean's office. The door was a swirling vortex of colors, a security measure designed to be impenetrable to any species that couldn't perceive the specific sequence needed to enter. Alex took a deep breath, then reached out and traced the pattern she'd been given upon her arrival at the academy. The vortex solidified into a door, which slid open with a soft whoosh. Alex stepped inside, and for a moment, she thought she'd accidentally walked into a meeting of the United Nations if the UN included beings made of pure energy and sentient gas clouds. Dean Xylos, a being of shimmering light and gravitational distortions, floated at the head of a large table. Around it sat or floated, or existed in ways Alex's human brain couldn't quite comprehend, a diverse array of alien beings. Some she recognized as representatives of major galactic powers. Others were completely foreign to her. MS. Alexandria. Dean Xylos's voice resonated in her mind. Thank you for joining us. Please have a seat. We have much to discuss about your future. and the future of humanity in the galactic community. As Alex gingerly took a seat, acutely aware of every eye, sensory organ, and energy receptor focused on her, she couldn't help but think, well, this ought to be interesting.